Greetings and welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. I'm your host, Dr. G, and I am so glad that you could keep our appointment. Now, I am extremely excited about tonight's guest.
Really?
Tonight's guest, Chris Robinson Jordan, is an author, playwright, actor, and writer-director who creates gritty dramas and historicals about beautifully flawed women striving to make the world a better place. Prior to her TV, film, and theater career, Chris spent 3 years in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, working as a publicist and a journalist. As a filmmaker, Chris wrote, directed, and produced her dramatic short, January 14th, which was the recipient of 50-plus awards and honors worldwide, including a nomination for Best Diaspora Short Film by the Africa Movie Academy Awards. The film was also the official selection of 75 film festivals, including the Oscar-qualifying Pan-African Film Festival. Chris was recently honored by the Best of Los Angeles Awards as being one of LA's 100 most fascinating people for 2022.
That's me.
Her most recent passion, however, centers around hidden history and genealogy. She serves as executive producer and co-host on the American Aboriginals, which explores and re-examines American history through interviews, discussions, and documented scientific, archaeological, and historical evidence. Well, tonight we're going to get into and answer the question, do you know who you are and why genealogy matters? I want you to help me welcome to House of Reawakening Mind for the first time, but definitely not the last time. Tonight's guest, Chris Robinson Jordan.
Hey.
Well, sis, how you doing?
I'm good.
I'm gonna tell them to press that like and that share, and let somebody know, because I know a whole bunch of us want to know how to search out our genealogy.
Yes.
And so, I mean, we've heard others, we are grateful to the work that our brother Dane Calloway has done and is doing on that. But it's good to know that there are others who are out there who have, are blazing that trail and tracing their roots. And I'm so happy that you're going to share that and some more. I'm pretty sure that tonight's viewers are going to be pleasantly surprised as we go forward. But you have such a prolific career and background, and you are such, if I had the credentials that you have, I'm just gonna be honest, I probably have a case of the big head. I probably be they probably they were like, you know what, I used to like you when you were playing and
Right.
So I've got a hope of you, sis. But you, and I can say this with all honesty and sincerity, you are one of the probably the sweetest, humblest humans or sentient beings that I have ever met. You are such a sweetheart, and I'm later on, y'all will find out why, because because she's so super special, and you're gonna agree by the time we finish. But you have such a prolific career.
I know, it's pretty crazy, right? And as you know, we don't always, we have plans for ourselves, and, spirit takes us in many different directions. And so, in my imaginary life, I wanted to be a doctor and a lawyer. And, my mother tapped me a long time ago, and she actually saw my talent as a writer. And she taught me to read books and to be curious about the world. And, I was reading, words out of the dictionary when I was like about 4 years old. So I was like, I loved reading. I loved words. And so that really just kind of carried throughout my life. But I didn't even anticipate doing any kind of writing, directing. Although I loved movies, I didn't envision that for myself. And then when fast forward to college, I said, you know what, I love to write a novel, but that's probably not really practical for me right now. So I got these loans to pay off. So I need something that's going to pay the bills. So I turned to journalism. And actually, that ended up being the best thing for me because it laid an incredible foundation of research and actually listening to people's stories, finding out more about people, who they were, and just really getting into the depths of writing, storytelling, right? And so it led me to Dubai. I spent about 3 years there working as a feature writer. And oh my goodness, that changed my
I was
life.
getting ready to ask you because it seems like these days everybody is going. Like I see family, kinfolk, whatever you want to call them. I know they like took a whole crew, and they all have these beautiful pictures with these flowing things on the looks like the sandy desert or whatever it is in Dubai. And I'm like, everybody is going to Dubai these days.
Yes, it is. I was there during the early 2000s. I went there about 1998 to 2001. So Dubai was still being built up. So what you see now is a totally different dynamic. So then at that time, there was still more, you felt more of a cultural feeling. Now it feels a little, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, very commercial. Yeah. At the time that I was there, I learned so much about the world, and I didn't realize how US-centric I was until I got there. And I started meeting locals, talking about their culture, also spending a lot of time with expats from other countries. And I realized there's an incredible story, a credible dynamic that we just don't know about from our space. And we get the news from a very different perspective. And so I quickly learned that we're not being told everything. We're not at all. There was one story in particular. I was at a gathering, a social gathering with locals and expats. And I had this really interesting talk with a lady, and she was so fascinating. And she was brown like us. And I assumed she was from Africa. And I asked her where she was from. And she said, I'm from here. I said, you mean Dubai? And she says, yes, I'm a local. And that really, really opened my eyes because I realized, I said, wow, I said, it looks like you guys are having the same problems we're having. She goes, absolutely. She says, they hide us. And I thought that was a really interesting comment because when you see the people who run these countries, they're not necessarily brown and dark like us. And so what I learned from that experience was that there was so much more to uncover about our Aboriginal roots and not just in relation to the US. And I realized that this was happening all over the world where we were being hidden, our stories were being brushed under the table, and we weren't being seen, and no one knew about us. And for political reasons, we're being pushed in the background. Wow. So what I began to realize was that this is a global story. I also saw a lot of people from different countries who were, quote unquote, melanated. And they were also being treated very differently. It seemed like the lighter you were, the better you were treated. And I saw that particularly with East Indians, people from Bangladesh. And it was really fascinating because I thought, wow, this isn't just happening in the US. We have colorism everywhere. And not only that, we have people who are in these positions of power who are making sure that we stay where we are. And so I came back with this understanding that, wow, there's some stories that need to be told for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. Because when you talk about people like say from Bangladesh and so forth, you see, especially like here where I am in Delaware, and I'm sure everywhere where they, those folks from that area have, immigrated over here to the U.S. You see, sometimes we're in the fruit market, and they in hue they're darker even, yeah. And I'm brown. I'm brown, right? But they're darker. The difference is maybe the hair texture is straight, but they're very, 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 very dark. Yes. And apparently they have created a caste system, in a lot of these countries too. And we think we don't have one, but yet, we do, in a sense, have the same type of things. In my poem called Hair Cares, there's a part that I say that a standard was set, that, that we not only deal with the hair, but skin and features too, because the standard was set that we try to live up to. And
Yes.
so those standards are like, a standard, I think, is a flag or a banner. And for us, a lot of folks all over, I realized, especially since I've been in this position of being a host of an international channel, I get to interact with us from all over.
Yes.
And like you said, we are everywhere, not just typical. They're in Africa, we're in the Caribbean, but we're in like what I mean, I'm gonna say like over in, I don't want to say Russia, but those kind of countries over there. I get calls from folks in China and Japan, and they're in Scotland and so forth. They're everywhere. I don't want to say we are everywhere.
Everywhere. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you do have to break out. I think I think you said that you have to break out of this in order to see the deception.
Yes, absolutely. And I understand. I get it. We get our information from a very, Eurocentric, very US centric, very nationalistic perspective. And I get it. Most countries will do that. But one of the things that you find when you talk about learning your history, you're talking about really taking things on a global perspective, because you'll find your origins from different parts of the world. And so you almost have to be a global historian and not just about the US. But I do speak specifically about the US when I talk about genealogy. But when I had those experiences coming back, I realized, wow, I said, there's so much that we don't know. And it took me about a good 6 months to adjust to coming back. It really did, because I could hear the conversations, and I could hear, I guess you could say, Americans from a different perspective. And I realized why the world has such an opinion about us, and why sometimes we're deemed as being ignorant, because we don't talk about the same things. When I was over in Dubai, we were always talking about political and social issues. There was no amusement, so to speak. Yeah, we had fun and we got together, but we were really very aware that we were in an international community. We're very much aware that we were not in our home countries, and that we had to kind of act accordingly. So when I came back with this determination to really dive deeper into history and know more about myself and more about the world around me, and dove straight into theater and directing and writing plays. And I realized in that I could use this as a vehicle to educate and entertain at the same time. So that was what I started to do. Yes, I wrote comedies, I wrote dramas, but I found the work that really, really resonated with me were those stories that were steeped in history. And I had so much fun doing that. And those seemed to be the pieces that really resonated with people and they reacted to, because I would often say, oh, I didn't know that. I would set, shows during the Great Depression. I actually did come back and I wrote those 2 novels, and I set those during the Civil War. And I'm working on a piece right now that's set during World War II. So one of the things I find is in trying to understand my world that I live in now, I look back at what our ancestors have given us. And there's so much for us there. It doesn't mean that we have to stay rooted in the past, but we definitely can see there's some repetition there that we can definitely learn from. And there's definitely some things that we can move forward within our own lives and create better legacies for ourselves. So it's been an incredible ride. I've been having so much fun. But in that, history and passion for my ancestors and their stories is always there.
Well, with you writing a lot of pieces that I would call them period pieces and so forth, I was listening to the radio and talk radio today, and they were bringing up the fact, because this is like more right wing that I listen to, more the right, but they were talking about how they, for once, they agreed with Whoopi, because the View and all that's normally always pushing the left wing demo sort of philosophy. And they were saying that apparently Whoopi Goldberg had spoken out against, and I don't know who the writer is, I can't remember, they said it, but talking about how, in today's culture, we have all the PC, politically correct, and they are literally talking about rewriting existing works to take out what they consider to be offensive or not, PC language, and Whoopi was like, why would you do this? Put a disclaimer on it. And because back then when they were writing, Uncle Remus and people like that, I mean, the N word was there. Some of the they were very things, but they were what she was saying, and what they were saying was that why would you rewrite history? In other words, but what reminded me, what that reminded me of, is the fact that we are living in a rescripted or rewritten history even now. I mean, we're finding out that a lot of that Reconstruction was about not building new buildings, but building new narrative, building new dialogue to explain away what was, and to rewrite or to enter in folks that came, the Johnny come latelys into it. So apparently this is a big to do right about now, about rewriting the works of writers. And the guy was saying, I would hate to be, an author. Now I'm dead, and now my stuff is being rewritten to fit, a generation that is so far removed, but should still know, like you said, what was, in order to help inform what is and what will be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been reading about that too, and I will say this as a writer, I am so opposed to censorship of any form, and I experienced that while I was in Dubai as well, and had a pretty harrowing experience there with censorship, and that taught me a lot about voice. It taught me a lot about my place in this world and how to fight against that when you can. And particularly as a writer, there's a space of time when we write something and it's real and it's authentic and it's true to the moment. When you go back and you try to change that from a writer's perspective, you are completely disregarding everything that we put down. And it's insulting, it's offensive, and quite frankly, who are we trying to please? Who are we trying to appease in this? And again, like you said, it's a rewriting of history. They've been doing this for a very, very long time. It's just another form of it. And unfortunately, these authors can't speak for themselves because they're no longer here. Sure. And that is really, really the dangerous part, because they're going to continue doing it, right? And until there's an advocate or someone, maybe the author's estate, speaking up and saying, no, don't do this, you're going to continue to see more of this, unfortunately. So as a writer, you have to find those ways to write around that and find the authentic voice as much as you possibly can, because it's quite frankly, hey, yeah, Huckleberry Finn has an N-word in it, but well, what can we do? That was the times. And we must stay true to that, as uncomfortable as it is.
True.
We have to. And I know that people don't always like to be, they don't want to hear those words. And I've literally had that. And I've put the N-word in my plays, but I always did it within context. And I remember a Caucasian couple literally walking out of the play because the language was so strong. But I was doing it not just for a dramatic effect, but because I wanted to educate. But sometimes if you're not there in the room to explain that, people will just assume a lot of things. But yeah, I'm so against what's happening here. And we'll see what happens as the time goes on, because like with all things, you need a bit of madness before there's sanity. Mm-hmm. So we will see. But I do believe that writers in general will be speaking up for themselves, because it will easily happen to them 50 to 100 years from now.
Right. Yeah. So, I guess I'm wondering if I should put this question in here, or should I move it? Sometimes you're like, maybe I should put this in at another point. But I will ask this. Not everyone that comes on this platform knows about their heritage or their genealogy, or that they're not Negro, Black, colored, African American, and all those things. However, even though we don't see an L or a Bay title of for you, you're not someone that I just found that I saw on the internet that was doing something great, and I thought, oh, it's genealogy, so let me see if I can get this sister on this show. But you know a lot about what we do here. Mm-hmm. And can you share your connection? Well, not all of it, but how you came to learn about House of Reawakening Minds, this platform, Grand Chief Tashariq Bey, even myself.
Yes.
I mean, what before we go back into the writing stuff, I want to let the viewers know, you're not just a person. I mean, person. You're not a person, but you're not just someone who has a lot of accolades in the industry. Because I want to talk about the industry too, because you're out there in the in that area that highly weird and
Right.
But how does someone like yourself end up on a platform like this? How did you get here?
Well, Dr. G, firstly, you're my idol for so many different reasons. So many reasons.
I'll take it.
And I would like to start off by saying that I wasn't always in this space. I was ignorant. I was saying, I'm African American, I'm a descendant of a slave, and I'm Black, and I'm proud, and all of that. And I grew up in a time when that's what you talked about. That's who you were. You were Black. That's it. You were African American. That's it. And that was what I was taught. And going through these public school systems and what have you, you repeatedly told this again and again and again and again. And even when I got to college, I was still Black and Black this. And although I was focusing on awareness and diversity, that word, I recognized that something was still missing. As a journalist, I was doing so much research and things just weren't adding up to me. Things were just not adding up. And so I was on this quest. And like with all things, when you're on a quest, the answers will come, but they don't always come at once. Sometimes they come in trickles. And it started when I was in Dubai. It started when I returned. And then I started being surrounded by people who were telling me some really profound things, and I still didn't accept it. Again, there's another story. I remember this was in Seattle, and I was visiting my mom and my dad, and there was this young African lady. Sometimes we'd see her. She lived in the same apartment complex as they did, and we said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And she asked me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm originally from Oakland. I was born in Oakland and lived in Louisiana." And she said, "No, where are you from?" And I was confused and I didn't know what she meant by that. I said, "Well, my family's," again, I repeated my answer. I said, "Well, my family's from the South. We were slaves. We came down from North Carolina, blah, blah, blah." And she kind of rolled her eyes. And I said, "What does that mean?" She goes, you all talk about being slaves, but how do you not know your history?" And it floored me. And I, of course, initially was offended, but then at the same time, I was like, but I said, "Well, where are you from?" And she told me where she was from. And she told me about how they do their own tracing of the roots, their oral history. And I was like, wow. So in that moment, this was many, many years ago. This had to be over 20 years ago when I had this exchange. But it stayed with me, as you can see. And one of the things I learned was that she rolled her eyes at me. What I realized was because I'm repeating what I've been told. I didn't do any research. I didn't really know. Well, I did research what I thought was research. But essentially, I was repeating everything that had been drilled into my brain. And so as time goes on, of course, the last few years have been incredible. We were kind of stuck in our homes. And I realized that something else was shifting here and something needed to change. And I continued to seek and seek and seek. And I found you. And I found you because of people I knew who were already ahead of me in their knowledge. And I would argue with them, I'm Black, And again, listening repeatedly without getting emotional, I realized that there was something here. And I thought I was doing something. I said, well, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do my research. And that's exactly what I did. I started doing my research. And I found out so much about myself. It took me down the genealogy journey even deeper. I thought I had started it, which I started it about 7 years ago. But when I started doing research and listening to you and Grand Chief, everything just started making sense. The dots started to connect. It just became so obvious what was happening, what has happened to us, what is happening to us now. And again, I have people that come onto my space and they argue with me. But here's the thing about people who argue with you. Usually 9 times out of 10, they haven't done their research, or they've done the research and it's outdated.
Mhm.
So yes, I am here because of, my goodness, Dr. G, your tireless work. And yes, I hear you. And you are so adamant about people getting their knowledge and information, getting their erudition up. You talk about that so much, and it's true, and it's daily. You cannot expect to be learned, right, if you're not studying. And it's fascinating, quite frankly. I can never get enough of it. And so that is why I'm here. And I'm continuing the journey, always learning. I'll be learning until I'm on this planet because it's endless. And as you know, there's this incredible, this kind of like, there's a lot of divulging lately. And those things that we questioned, we're beginning to see. They're starting to reveal hidden cities, hidden books, all these things that we had been talking about. But now they're saying, yeah, you were right. So, yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Well,
long story.
And you've shortened it, but we try. It's interesting because sometimes people don't want to hear your truths because of the indoctrination, because it's so ingrained. And I just want to give a shout out to a friend, and they know who they are. If they're watching it or if they see this later on, who allowed me to kind of like bend their ear about things totally against probably the grain of everything they know, but they were attentive to listen to me and say, while I haven't heard that before, never even considered that, now you've given me food for thought, or you've given me something to ponder, you've given me something to research further. And that's normally where it starts. You drop there, something is kind of dropped. And for me, it was kind of totally different, because it was an out of body experience that kind of prompted me out of the track that I was on. They say train up a child in the way that he should go, and and I was still on the train track, and then something said I had a derailment. And since we talk about train derailments in this season, I was derailed, and coming off the track, I came to realize that, like you, when you said you were researching before, but when you research or when you study the things that are already been corrupted, how can you get the truth when you're saying I went to Bible college, or I went to college, and I learned, and I got A's and B's, I graduated from whatever,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But if you were learning error, if you were learning untruth, and you're just an educated fool.
Right. Absolutely.
So you get, like the Bible, like the prophet said, don't throw the Bible away, we need it. And so I'm reminded that Paul said something like, everything that I gained, I count it all dung. In other words, it's BS. That's what he said. That's one of the things I like to do when I'm talking about, biblical things, is put it in modern day vernacular and say, because I want to take the woo-woo out and say they made it woo-woo so that they could trap us in a matrix. But if you really go back to probably how it went down, like for instance, I was telling somebody yesterday when allegedly God tells Moses, up on the mount, when he says to God, show me your glory.
Yeah.
And we have this vision of some cloud and something coming down that came from God that made, like it makes people shout in the church and gives them the Holy Ghost and stuff. But I said, but in reality, when he said, show me your glory, because I've studied some other things, the glory, the kabod is something that really means it's tangible, it's heavy, it's something. It's not etheric. It is actually something. And I said, what he was basically saying to this God who says, look, I want you all to be my people, and I'll be your God. And so Abraham's like, I got thousands of people following me. Why do we need a God? Show me what you're working with. He didn't say, show me your glory. He said, what do you have that's better than what I got, that has all these thousands of people that are following me? I have to do this kind of Bible study for folks, because that's basically what it is. Show me what you're working with. He's like,
Mhm.
come back tomorrow. He did. But then when you come back, I'm gonna put you in a rock. And the cleft of a rock, you got to be, because if you see it, you're not gonna survive it. So
Mhm.
I surmised it was doggone nuclear. And because when he came down, his hair was white and his skin was glowing. And when you start to look at Chernobyl and different things like that, the same, like, look, he's like, I got this nuclear stuff. This is the guy. This is Enlil. I got this stuff right here. Your enemies will not be able to stand against you, right? But you
Yeah.
got to be my people. And that's
Mhm.
basically the same thing you see in life, in territories, when people are vying for control of groups or areas. And they like, what do you have
Mhm.
better than what I've got? And
Yeah.
he's like, let me show you. And
Mhm.
so even for stuff like that, they rewrote things to give us this, feeling of helplessness, because at any time, the great God could just strike the whole nation dead or something like that. So
Yeah.
you have to study, and I'm saying all that to say that a lot of times we study the wrong thing, or we study it out of context because it's been taught to us out of context. So you got to
Yeah.
research out, you got to be led,
Mhm.
by your higher self to say, okay, I got to think outside this box and,
Yep.
and open myself up for downloads of truth. With that said, how does one start on the journey of tracing their genealogy?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Wow. I will say that I want to distill it down and think about a mindset shift for a minute, because I think that's the start of it. Because what's happened is we have not been taught that our family history is important. I know there's a movement and people are changing their ideas about genealogy and their family history, but I find that we're still needing to do more. And part of this mindset shift is you have to say, this is my family story. It's lifelong, it's ongoing, and no one is going to tell my story better than my family and myself. That's the first thing. Because what's happened to us is, yes, I've heard the arguments, well, we're a descendant of slaves, we can't find this information, we can't find this research. And I say, well, you start from where you are. Who are the elders in your family? Are you talking to them? Are you sitting down and getting to know them? Are you really taking the time? Because I say there's a sense of urgency in a way, because we're running out of time. Our elders are leaving us. And the more decades that go by, the more we begin to say, you know what, I need to hurry and I need to get this information. So it really starts with having simple conversations with your elders, talking about their lives, and really tapping their memories, because that's what we used to do. We were oral historians, and that is how we pass down from generation to generation our stories. Now, of course, sometimes you'll find that those stories get diluted over time, and you find that there's a bit of embellishment like any other story. But for the most part, that's why it's so important to continue talking to as many people in your family as you possibly can. So it really starts with understanding that if you don't do it now, who are you going to rely on for your history? Are you going to keep turning to books? Are you going to keep turning to magazines and articles in the media for your family history? It doesn't quite make sense. So you have to begin to say to yourself, I'm going to do as much as I can to start having conversations with my family and having talks. Because here's the thing, when you start talking to your family, it brings you closer, right? Sometimes I know it can be challenging, but for the most part, it really is about having new conversations, really listening and saying, this is part of our family history, and really starting there, right? I was
Mhm.
reading a statistic the other day, that was done by, I want to say, I forget the organization that quickly, it just slipped my brain. But they said that about 53% of Americans don't even know all their grandparents. They cannot name the names of 4 of their grandparents. Now, of course, in that same survey, they said that they want to know more about their family. So I say, if you want to know more, then what are you going to do about it? When do you start? When do you begin? So it starts with having those interviews, and it's a step and it's a process. Now we do have technology at our fingertips and we can start. And I'm not necessarily endorsing any particular, website, But of course, you start with, your ancestry websites, and there's a number of them that you can use to start the process and connecting the dots, connecting the oral history to what the written documentation says. It starts with that. Another thing that you do, and this is a reality, when you talk about reversing all of what's been done to us in the form of genocide, it's going to take some time, right? It's going to take some months. It's going to take some years, and know that this is part of the journey. You're going to also, you're going to be looking at online documents. You're going to be looking at census reports. You're going to be looking at, deeds. You're going to be looking at, slave schedules. You're going to be going to courthouses, looking at birth certificates. You're going to be looking at a lot of documents. But here's the thing. This is your family. I get so excited every day that I go into my family tree, because there's always something new I learn, and I find a new family member. Yes, sometimes you will hit those dead ends, but you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, right? So, but yes, you definitely start with the oral history, getting those interviews, going on these sites and getting the documentation and working as diligently as you can. And then, of course, knowing that this is a long game. It's a long game. It may take years. Some people I know have been looking in their family histories for 20, 30, 40 years, even with oral history at their fingertips. So there's a lot there, but that's a start. I think that's a good start for many people.
Well, a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half or two ago, my mother's older brother, he was not the oldest, but he was the second oldest. My mother transitioned in 2002, but my uncle, her brother, is still with us, and he's like 88 or 89 this year. To be 89.
Yes.
And I did interviews with him, which I have on my phone in the, like you do the voice recordings. And as a result of talking to him, I'm looking, I have I made a note. I had my father's side and my mother's side, because my father and mother were not married. So, you kind of have, whatever. So I got information from cousins and some others. My uncle filled in a lot of things about our side, my mother's side of the family, and things I didn't know. Some of those things were sorted,
Mm-hmm.
They had houses of ill repute, and they had different.
Yeah.
But he told me, and I have his voice actually literally telling me, these things. Now I can only go as far back on my mother's side to my great grandmother on my mother's side. I remember her, and I kind of used to say, well, why did I know Grandma Della? Why, not that she didn't have children, couldn't have lived a long life. But it turns out when my uncle fills in the blanks and tells me, they used to say about my grandfather, he was raised by white people. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, why was my grandfather raised by, quote unquote, that's what they were saying, white people? Yeah. When my uncle gave me the story, and that's all these years later, he tells me grandfather was raised in an orphanage because great grandmother was 12 or 11 years old when she had him as a result of being molested by her stepfather. Mm-hmm. And so he was in an orphanage until he was maybe 16 or something. And then he came back into that. But all I heard was he was raised by white people. You see what I'm saying? So yep. Unless you have someone that can, give you the backstory, it would have always just been, a total mystery to me as to why this occurred, yep. And all of the traumas and so forth, and then you start to, even like I said, trauma, the various traumas that, have been in your family tree and or, the history and so forth. So I see that little bit of those conversations with him. I've got enough to at least, get me started. I have approximate dates and so forth. And I know where they pretty much were born in the area, but I can't go any further than that. But that was fascinating to me, just that somebody could tell me something that my mother hadn't even told me.
Yes, absolutely. And that's so key, Dr. G, because you have multiple people that you can speak to fill in those gaps. Because when you're going on the journey, you're going to find that there's so many different conversations you're going to have. And some may sync up, some may not. And that's okay, because when you're doing your investigative research, you do it without judgment. And you're just collecting data. That's how I see it as a researcher. You're collecting data, you're taking notes, you're asking questions, leading questions, and you're just having a conversation, because guess what? You're learning so much about your family. I had that similar situation too. My mother was the oral historian in the family, and she talks so much about our great grandmother, Winnie White. Now, when I was first doing the research, I could not find her. I could not find Winnie White. I looked and looked and looked. Finally, I found her through one of her siblings. And what I found was that their name was actually Applewhite. And they were slaves on the Applewhite plantation in North Carolina. But what happened was, the reason why they stopped being Applewhites was because her husband had dropped the name Applewhite and became just White. And I pieced that together, and I realized, he served in the U.S. colored troops. And I think from just looking at the research, he said, I'm getting rid of all aspects of that life, and I'm just going to be white. So when you look at this history, you recognize from the documentation, from what was happening to them at the time, they ended up having like 9 children. Wow, you realize there was a deliberate attempt to drop the white. He wasn't an ignorant man. He had his own farm. He owned his own farm. So why did he drop it? Because he didn't want to have any connection to that plantation and those folks. And the reason why that pieced that together was because my mother told my grandmother's mother had also said that when they were working on the plantation, they used to, and you probably heard this story, they used to spit in their food. They hated life. And I realized, there was a lot of personal issues there that they had with this particular family. So I could see why historically they would just say, you know what, I'm and the patriarch says, I'm just getting rid of the apple altogether, but I'm not going to get rid of the full name. I'll keep at least the white part.
So do you think though that you're, when if you could trace them back to being on a plantation, I've heard some things that some so-called plantations, but it had been more like sharecropping type situations that really didn't give a lot back. As a matter of fact, in a lot of the cases, people had the land before the colonizers came in, and then they transferred their, if you will, their relationship to their own property as one of, you can stay here, but you're gonna work for us, and you're probably never gonna leave because you can't. More so than. Or did you trace your family back to coming on these, I call them, what do they call those? The tuna boats, you know what I mean?
No, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I know a lot of people push back on this when we talk about the descendants of slaves, and the ships coming from Africa. Well, for myself personally, I have not seen that in my family tree. Right. Mm-hmm. One of the things I found with my my third great grandmother, was that they ended up having land. And I said to myself, how did that happen if they were slaves in North Carolina? Now, they didn't move to Louisiana right away. They stayed there for a while and had their children. But one of the things I found was that her father was actually Sephardic. He's a Sephardic Moor, by the last name of Hyman. Now, that was her father. Now, I have to say to myself, when I look at those records, was that she was his only surviving daughter. And so I'm thinking that the land was probably gifted to them after they left the plantation, because they stayed in North Carolina for a while. So some of these are conjecture, but when you see the documentation and you see the paperwork, you start making these connections, and you have to make some type of assertions about what you see on paper. So when it comes to the quote unquote slave ships, for myself, I have not found them. Right. And I've been doing this for, like I said, about 7 years. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't Africans and there aren't people from a certain region that are in your family tree. You're going to find that you have a multi-ethnic background. It's very diverse. You're going to find all types of people in your tree. But here's the thing. You're also going to understand history from another perspective, because now you're not just researching your family. You're also researching names. And names are going to be really critical to understanding who these people are, because you start researching the names, you're going to find out who people really are. So
researching Jimmy Carter the other day, and former prez, and I was checking on the long held rumor that he was the son of Joe Kennedy. And so I was doing some research online, just checking, and his mother comes up. I'm looking, Lillian Gordy Carter. Guess who is related in her family? Barry Gordy. So I'm like, was she a mulatto or something? The owner, the owner of the plantation, but Barry Gordy is in the lineage of Jimmy Carter, especially since it's the mother, it's questionable about who the daddy is, since they say it's Joe, but Lillian is the mama. And Lillian Gordy Carter was the one, and the interesting thing is, if you look at the history and read up on her, a lot of things she did were focusing on racial injustice situations, and they say she was one of the ones who allowed and said, the African Americans or something to come in the front door when everybody else was making she had folks sitting in her living room. And I'm thinking, was she passing?
You're going to see a lot of that. And sometimes, again, it goes back to documents. Again, looking at the Hyman line. Now, of course, they were going by white on all their census records. Everywhere you see, they're white. But I found one document of a cousin, I guess third cousin. I saw that she had been married, but it wasn't mentioned in other aspects of family trees that I was connecting with. But I found that document, and let me tell you, on that marriage certificate, and now you don't see any record of her being married to this particular man. I haven't done research on him yet, but I saw on that marriage certificate, she was listed as colored. Right? So there's sometimes always a document that will reveal the history. So somewhere along the way, someone said, or she revealed, that she is not completely, quote unquote, white. And as you know, white is not really a race per se, it's status.
Right.
And when you start really studying who came over, you're going to find there's so many people who were multi-ethnic, and they were indeed passing. So, and that's a whole nother conversation in itself, but you have to start with what you see on paper. And sometimes, again, you'll find a photograph, you'll find it, and you'll say, hold on a second. And particularly having lived in New Orleans in the South for a long time, we'll see somebody who say, hold on, there's something going on with that person. I see that person. And that was, that is in our, I guess you could say, in our culture, where we can identify people who are indeed passing. It could be something really subtle, but we can see it.
Normally it's something like maybe the nose a little bit, or the lips. There's something about
something.
Something about them. Yeah. But which brings up another situation, in that we want to be as pure, if you will, as we can be. We want to say we're pure this and pure that, but the truth of the matter is that we are a mixture, an admixture of so many different, like I say, cultures. And by the time you start going back and coming forward, you're like, oh my goodness, it's Heinz 57, yes. In a sense. And then I was telling, a friend of mine, I was like, I think I did tell him the story that wasn't told in the history books, was that, when they talk about the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, they always talk about slaves coming from Africa to, America, when they very rarely talk about what would you call it? Would they have been expats, or would they have been when you're the immigrants, and you have immigrants, right? Immigrants and immigrants. They were sent away. They were convinced, they convinced them that they could go and start their own colonies over in West Africa. So they left these lands basically in the east coast of America, and traveled and created Monrovia, Liberia, and probably some of the other West African nations we know, those folks came from over here and went
That's
there.
right. That's right. And another aspect of history that goes completely ignored is all the white slaves that were brought here.
Right.
And I haven't found a mathematician yet, but we have to look at this from a logistical perspective. You got slaves coming from Africa, right? Slaves coming from all the other places in Europe and beyond. So logistically, how is this possible? And you have to begin to ask these questions, because from a modern perspective, that's a lot of building of boats. That's a lot of moving of quote unquote cargo. Logistically, how is that possible? And what I'm finding is that many of us are Aboriginal to this land, And that's something that we have to talk about. I know people have written ad nauseum about the quote unquote Black Indians, but we got to get deeper. It's not just about being, mixed with one group over another. Many of us were already here, right? And some of us can trace our roots here. And I know there's a lot of pushback because, again, it's about jockeying for position and jockeying for that land. And I would like to say that if we are talking about genealogy, the number one reason why I really, really want people to focus on their genealogy is because it ties you to your land. Yeah. That is what you want to do. Because the more you keep saying that you're from other places and other spaces, i.e. Africa, where are you from? Where are your feet grounded? Where are you grounded? And that's so important to us. And we have to really begin looking at that from a whole nother perspective. And we quit repeating the stories that have been told to us. Because once you do your genealogy and you start diving deep and getting your family history and writing that out, you're going to find that your story is so unique. And it doesn't look like anything you've been reading in the history books. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is the disconnect that many of us have. And we have to really start reversing that right now. Because you could see, there's, I could say everyone's fighting for what you have or what once belonged to you. Mm-hmm. We have to quit doing that. We have to quit letting other people say and jockey for position when we've been here. We've been here the whole time. And this is scientifically proven, right? It goes back to doing deep dives in the research. And that's another reason, another thing we were told we weren't supposed to read. Mm-hmm. Reading was outlawed for us. So we not only, there was incredible genocide on so many different levels, but we also were kept ignorant. We weren't supposed to know anything. Cut us off from the land, cut us off from our memories, just completely annihilate our tribes and our spaces so that we cannot remember, even if we survive it. So, I mean, that is what genocide is. And I made a video about that some time ago, that this is what genocide looks like. But we can reverse it. But we have to be as vigilant as possible about this, because you never know how long this information is going to be available to you. We make the assumption.
Platforms too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One day you could go on one of these ancestry sites and they're gone, or they're having technical difficulties, right? Right. So we have to treat this like, I don't want to say life and death, but it is really important that we have this information, because keep in mind, people have information about us and they're not really revealing it to us.
Speaking of people having information about us, I learned a few years ago, I didn't know this, and I don't know if you've encountered this in your research, that the Mormon, and it's interesting that they call themselves the Mormon, that the Mormon community are the keepers of the records or archives of all birth records. Have you ever heard that they have genealogical records?
Yes, it's true. It's true. And I find that really interesting. And again, sometimes it's smoke and mirrors. Sometimes they are positioned to be the keepers of our information, but really who's behind them? That is the key question. And that is what I seek and search for. And again, I say to everyone, don't make any assumptions about how long this information will be available to you. But again, sometimes you find that in this age of disclosure, you're going to find out a great deal of things. And as you can see, things are heating up in our space right now, where there seems to be an assault on us every day regarding information, regarding everything about us. Now, what's also interesting, and I know you probably are aware of this too, that, with I guess this being the last day of quote unquote Black History Month, there's this pushback on teaching, Black history in certain spaces, the AP courses and things of that nature. But I say with that, again, how do we really talk about quote unquote Black history when we're not telling the truth about our origins? And I'm
Or
not
the fact
saying
that we're not Black. And yeah, how do we interject that? How do we, because, it's not going to magically happen that everybody's going to wake up and go, I'm not Black. I'm melanated, or I'm Aboriginal, I'm Indigenous. They're not,
Right.
it's not, but we don't have a way to interject the truth into the narrative on a grand scale. We hear it, we know it,
Mm-hmm.
and we tell our, friends and associates and kinfolk if we can. But the masses don't know what we're talking about.
The masses don't. And I'm encouraged and sometimes discouraged. I'm encouraged because I see people wanting to know more. They're asking questions. And sometimes I recognize that, like you said, people just aren't going to see the urgency of this, right? But as we continue to talk about this whole idea of reparations and what we're owed, we have to still go back to and keep repeating ourselves. We have to base this in logic and facts and not emotion. And part of doing that is getting your research together. And I told this one young lady, she was going back and forth with me about, well, we're owed reparations, we're owed this, we're owed that. And I said, I understand what you're saying. I said, but guess what? Pretend you are trying to fight a traffic ticket, right? You go into the courthouse and you're talking to the judge. Is the judge really going to listen to your emotions? Or does he want you to prove that you are not supposed to get this traffic ticket? Now, I know that many of us understand what that means, but ultimately in the end, if you're talking about quote unquote receiving what is owed to you, how do you do that with logic? How do you do that from a lawful perspective? How do you say, yes, my family's land was taken through an eminent domain issue? How do you go back and you think about that and start really having cogent arguments, cogent discussions around that? Well, it's always going to boil down to your paperwork, right? So that's why I always stress to people that they must focus on getting their documentation together, because it's important for any discussion that you're going to have about your quote unquote reparations, if that's even a thing. I should say reparations in terms of, I don't want reparations. I mean, it's not even going to happen.
Because it may not happen, because we need restoration. And there's a difference, because I see reparations as, okay, we're going to give every one of them 55,000, 40,000. But maybe my restoration is 20 million. So why should I settle for your measly reparation, when I want to be restored? I don't want to be repaired. I want to be made whole.
Right. Absolutely. I want my land back.
Okay, I want that with interest, I want what you stole and what I would have gotten had I had access to and control of what you stole. And that, to me, people, I'm not going to name people. There's people that are very vocal. They just had a thing in DC not too long ago, and they claim it was very successful because it was the largest kind of reparations thing of its kind. But it's selling out. We don't need reparations. Yeah. We don't. It's quick fix, and 40,000 say dollars or whatever. I think California's talking about what your new.
Yeah, I think they were talking about like $250,000.
Your nuisance. I'm calling it your nuisance. Your governor nuisance. I know that's
a good one.
Your nuisance wants to dangle a $200 and some thousand carrot, but is that really? If they're doing that, first of all, they're giving us monopoly fiat money that it would have to be in gold or silver, gold and silver to be really lawful, currency and so forth. They're not going to do that. It's some digital something that they're going to give everybody. And I'm always the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. We just change. We just click a switch and you don't have that anymore. We
Right.
found out that we didn't have it. So you can't get caught up in stuff like
Mhm.
that. And you have to know that if you stay in the fight, you can't sell out. If you're going to
That's
stay in
right.
the fight, you can't say, oh, I can use that
Right.
250,000.
This is your
But
legacy. Yeah. This is your
absolutely,
family's legacy. And again, it's so true because you're talking about your children and your grandchildren. What are you leaving them?
right. And I say, I got great grands already. So I got
Yeah.
generations right behind me. At
Yes.
least they need to know who I am, because when I go,
Mm.
their grandmama, great grandmama is somebody that people know, but will they know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
you want to leave something, not just memories and so forth, but you want to leave legacy.
Yes.
You want to leave life better for them than it was for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that we operate in the dollars and cents in this paradigm that we're in, unfortunately. I go back to the what our ancestors did for us. Now we understand that they were up against some incredible odds, but even against those odds, they tried to still leave us with something. But as you can see, some of us squandered it. We went for ours. We got the good jobs, we did our this and that, and we have something to show for it, some of us. But for the most part, we do not. We're still sitting here paying mortgages. We're still slaving away. Our children have so much debt. So what did we really accomplish? So we got to put the brakes on the reparations and say to ourselves, what can we do to reverse what we've done to one another and to our families? That to me is really the crux of what we're talking about as well, because we could talk all day about what somebody took from us, but we've been taking from ourselves too, and not really instilling in the next generation, the generation after, what needs to happen in terms of creating that legacy, maintaining that legacy, and not bending. Like you mentioned, you can't bend. We've had so much come to us, but we've also given it away too, out of that desperation.
Yeah. And a lack of unity. We're because we're so divided and where we stand on many fronts. It has been easy for them to maintain the control, the mental slavery, because it's, now there may not be no physical change, but the mental, the economic slavery. There's the physical, when you talk medical slavery, things that happened in the last couple of years that actually should make us think about years gone by, because nothing's new under the sun. It's just that we weren't as cognizant back then of what has been done to us as we are now. You know what I mean? So those are forms of slavery. And then the lie of the great American dream, when it's really a nightmare that you've been made to be happy in.
Right. Absolutely. I always attribute it to this. And I know that it's really difficult for people to get out of the syndrome, if you will. But when you think about a thief and they take something from you, are they going to give it back? Are they going to show you where you can find your things again?
No,
So
not.
you have to really look at it from the perspective of not your perspective, but the person who quote unquote conquered you and took everything from you. You have to really strip yourself of of the fantasy and be real with it and say, look, this person isn't going to tell you the truth. They're not going to give you your money back. They're not going to give you your things back. You have to operate from that perspective. But what are you going to do about it? So you get your information together. You get armed, not necessarily, with a gun necessarily, but you get armed with knowledge. You get armed with information, and you are non-compromising. And part of that is getting your erudition up. You have to get the erudition up, and you have to know who you are, where you're from, because people can't have discussions with me about African slave ships anymore. They don't even try it. Because I'm going to have 10, 20 questions for you if you come at me with that one.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't used to be that way. I used to be ignorant, repeating what I had been told. Oh my God, yes, we were from Ghana, we were from Nigeria. Like I knew everything about Africa. Dr. G, you know this, right? I knew everything about Africa, but I didn't know anything about my people. Does that make any sense? I know
Well,
everything about what's going on over in Africa, but I can't tell you what was happening to my people in North Carolina. They were part of the Sapani tribe. Okay. My folks from Ohio, that are Cherokee. And we know that's not the real name, but for the sake of generality, I will use the names that the colonizer gave us. But I didn't know enough about my people that were right here. Right. So that's the thing, is it's not that you don't pay attention to what's happening to you. There's like you said, you're multi-ethnic, and you are Heinz 57. But you've got so much going on over here that will keep you super busy. you know and part of that is part of one of the things I love about genealogy is that it also teaches you to be a historian too, because as much as you do your family history, you're also looking at what's happening around your family. What was happening during those times? What was happening in that year? Why did they make these moves? Why were certain things happening? So those are the things that are important. Those are the things that you pay attention to. And, and even still, I'm having a situation right now where, my family in Ohio, we're dealing with some issues around, and I won't name the university, that is trying to rewrite some history of a town in Ohio. And they're just trying to obliterate it. Oh, but folks have some PhDs, and oh, they're right, they're correct. Like, no, my family's been there for over 220 years. We're telling you our history, right? And we're going to have a conversation about this. And you're not going to just erase our history and do sloppy research and just tell us who we are. You're not going to do that. But you have to be vigilant in that. You have to be on your A game when it comes to these institutions and it comes to these scholars. And if you see something that's incorrect, say, oh, no, that's not all the story. I'm going to let you know. But a lot of these things happen to us because we don't have the information. And I'm not saying that it's always our fault, right? You just know what you know. And there's no race to this. However, I will say there are folks out there that are very determined to write your history the way they want to write it.
Right. Historically, it's, to the victor go the spoils, and that the victor gets to rewrite, it as he or she deems it benefits them. And that's what we are victim of. And so you do have to do the research based, particularly what you said about the elders. You've got to reach those elders and extract that information so that you have a foundation, as far back as you can go. And for me, the furthest place I can actually go on my mother's side is my uncle, who, I just bliss his heart that he's still, and the funny part about this particular uncle is that I went on one of these sites where I think it was called Name Test or something. And, they have these questions, push the cherry and see who walks with you and whatever. And this was a few years back. And so this particular thing said, do you want to see what you look like, age progress, and the opposite sex? You had to pick a picture. And when you push the thing, it was gonna progress you in age to an older someone, and it was going to reverse your gender.
Wow.
The result that I got, I sent it to my aunt. She thought it was my uncle. It was me.
Wow, that's deep.
Age progressed and changed gender, and I look like almost like my uncle's twin brother.
Wow.
And I said, well, nobody else is related. You and I are. I mean, I sent that picture to his wife, who thought that was him.
Wow.
So we have roots, and we have things that that we can start with, and I used to think I'll never know, but just talking to him, I'm like, gosh, he's got his mind is sharp, It's so
Yes.
sharp, and he's had
Yes.
heart, valve replacements and this and that and the
Yeah.
other, and he's still mine is sharp. And I
Yeah.
would be so careful what I know today if he had not, told me. So, a lot of times there are people that you do it for you, but I would suspect that the best research is done by you yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I recommend both for people, particularly when they're having difficulty and they're feeling a bit stumped. Again, most good genealogists will point you in the right direction. And, you'll also become learned and good at this and learn how to do more research as you go. And know that sometimes it may take some years, particularly if you're finding a particular relative and you might not get that information right away. You know that you're going to have to go to the courthouse. You may have to take a trip. And definitely, I recommend people going to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. It's a great place as well. There's so many avenues to go to receive the information. But yes, starting with those elders is everything. And again, once you sit down and you talk to them, you're going to find out so much about your family and you're going to appreciate what has happened to them, what they've been through. And there's a humility that you gain from that. Because just like you're talking to your uncle, you didn't realize he had gone through so much.
No.
And it's a different way of rewriting the history, right? Of, if you were writing a book, how would you approach your book? You would first, of course, gather all your data, your information, but it's that heart space, the information that he probably never had an opportunity to tell anyone. So that's when you begin to really have really beautiful experiences and you begin to understand. Sometimes it can make you sad, but it also should empower you when you're talking to your relatives. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. Like my grandmother transitioned at the age of 33 in 1944. When my mother was 7, and I didn't realize from tuberculosis. I didn't know that at the age of 12, my uncle, he passed out. He was shoveling coal into, back then it was coal, and he passed out, and a pastor found him on the street and brought him into the church, and they didn't know why he had passed out. Well, he ended up in the hospital. Turns out, I think he had some TB. They took out a lung at the age of 12. The same uncle that's still around at 80 something has one lung, and he knew the same thing that took his mother out, at the age of 33. He was able to. He's been the survivor of all the siblings. He's the only one that's here, So, but I didn't know that had happened to him. You know what I mean? So that was another piece, of the history of our family that he filled in some blanks for me, and some other things. You know what I mean? But it was. I was just so excited, to just have my voice recorder on and just recording him.
Yeah.
And I have it in his own words on my phone right to this day about 2 or 3 sessions that we did. And he said to me last year before he had this heart surgery, he said, I want to write a book. I said, okay.
Nice.
Okay. He wants to write a book. He's like almost 90, but
Yeah.
I want to dictate a book, right?
Right. That's beautiful. Wow.
But
and it's also the oral history, it's the interviews, it's also the physical archives that you have. There's letters as well. There's things that were really precious to them. It could be a hat that they wore. It could be a piece of furniture. All of these things are really important to your family's history and to really understanding who they were. My third great grandmother, there's an old ironing board because she was a washerwoman before she became a nurse, and the family has preserved that. I mean, there's so many archival pieces that we have, but when you look at that, it's really humbling to see that she worked super hard and that there's evidence of this. And I could only imagine her ironing those clothes day in and day out and doing that until she was able to do better, but still doing it. Even when she became a nurse, she still had to take care of her children. She still had to wash their clothes, iron their clothes. Even if she wasn't doing it for the quote unquote white people, she still had to do that. So, I mean, that stuff just humbles you. And it, how can I not honor honor them by doing their story and by researching their story. Because if I don't do it, no one's going to care. No one's going to care.
Well, have you thought about, since you've been on this additional journey of nationality and just your genealogy and heritage, so to speak, have you thought about creating, because of your background in film, have you considered a video on the Moors? And I'm talking about something that not we have a lot of negative stuff out. We have stuff about the Moors, from Spain, and I'm talking about the Moors that are here now.
Right, right.
We need to come together, and whatever it takes. And when I say we, I mean I'm talking about the collective, because you're someone who has, not only are you a writer, director, playwright, you're celebrated in what you do, and how can we pass that up and say, listen, we need I don't want to, they make propaganda, but we need a truth piece about shattering the myth of Moors, Moors in America, because that's who we are, or,
Yes.
or the Aboriginal indigenous people. But have you considered maybe putting together a little documentary on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why I started the American Aboriginals, because I wanted to document people's stories. And I'm an interviewer at the core, and I love, talking to people and finding out more about who they are. So I guess I've already started doing it without knowing that I was doing it, starting the journey. So it's so funny that you asked that, because that's why I started the channel, because I wanted to talk to people who are going through this journey, who are going through their own ancestry. And to me, that is everything, is really getting to know people and finding out their journey, because what they talk about is indisputable. You'll have people who will say, well, I'm Native American and you're trying to be like me. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to be like you at all. This is who I am. I don't care if you don't like it, but this is who I am. And I think part of that is sitting down and talking to people and understanding who they are. But yes, absolutely. I think the journey starts with simply having a conversation, which is what a documentary is, having that conversation with people.
Well, I hope you will put Grand Chic in there.
That would be beyond. That would be beyond. I mean, he's walking history. Like, it's insane. And yes, Dr. G, I'm there. I'm all over it.
Yeah, listen, I will make sure. Look, can we let us take a little? Let's take a little detour.
Okay.
We had some stuff that we wanted to share. But let me ask you this before we go to another topic. If someone wanted to get in touch with you regarding starting their genealogical record search, and do you work with others and assisting them, or do you have like references or anything that you can and recommend as to how to begin the process? Because a lot of times people want to talk to someone,
Yes.
or when they're going through the process. I know you're busy. Do you do that? Is that
I tend to definitely help people. I don't necessarily do individual family trees for too many people. I have some people I work with, but I definitely, and that's why I started the American Aboriginals, because I wanted to be able to answer people's questions. I know that many people are on the journey and they do get stuck, and I share with them some of the experiences that I had and how they can do workarounds. But definitely people can reach out to me and ask me anything. And if I don't have the answer, I will definitely find it.
Well, listen, they want to know how to get in touch with you, but I'm going to say to you all that are listening, in each one of our presentations, there's always a description box. And, especially if you're looking on YouTube or Facebook, there's a description underneath each show. In that description section, you're going to find Sister LaChris's contact information, like as far as her website, the society, I think, and a link to one of the film, when your channel, and a couple of things. It's actually in the description. So if you don't mind, just after this is over, just going back and clicking down the down arrow. I think it is a little down like this V, and it'll take you so you can see the description. Not only will you see that, you also see the wonderful bio and the background of our sister, LaChris. And I'm just going, look, I'm just so proud of you. But I mean, it's not like, it's something that, you're not used to doing. But I'm shifting away from what we've been talking about, y'all, because I want to, share we wanted to share some other information. So I want to say it was about, I don't know when it was, like a month and a half ago, or let me see. It was 2 Rod Hayes interviews ago. Okay, so 2 Rod Hayes interviews ago. So not the one he just did as an unfiltered, but the one before that. I think it was called, maybe it was 2 more beyond that. I think it was before It's a Wrap too. It was before It's a Wrap.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 Rod Hayes. Many moons ago. It was like 3 Rod Hayes interviews ago. I was talking to Brother Rod about, first of all, I've been running this, ad about the sisters and, us joining together. Shout out to 334 sisters who have now signed up for the war. And one of the ones that apparently that signed up for the war, because I remember, the name now, was our sister, LaChris. So I didn't know anything about her at that time. So 3 Rod Hayes interviews ago. So I want y'all thinking, she's crazy. How's she saying? What does Rod have to do with it? We were talking about, the war. We were talking about, and I was sharing some of the things we needed. I said, well, we still need a website. We need a database. And so we need some. So I'm really slow sometimes at reading emails, but I happened to go to the email and I saw an email from Sister LaChris, and she said, Dr. G, I'm watching you now, and basically I'm just paraphrasing, and you're talking about a website. I can help. She said, I can help. And now I've had I can help, responses to things before that I'm still waiting for the help to come. But she said, I can help. And so, she's not because she's been the one to take on this task of developing the website, which is, it's in its beginning stages. And I wanted you to see who created the web site for House of Reawakening Minds. If you have not yet been to been on the website, it's houseofreawakeningminds.com. But this sister, with all that she does, I'm now going to say all that she does, I'm saying that to you, but with all that you do, LaChris, you took the time out and unselfishly said, I will create this. She created the website. She didn't ask for a thing. I gave somebody, I told you this, $1,500 deposit on a website about when I first started doing the lives. And brother, you know who you are. You haven't given me anything at all to this day, and I don't expect to get it. But the return on that, what I thought was a loss, is Sister LaChris coming forward. Sister LaChris Robinson Jordan coming forward and saying, I can help. And you created that website, and the only thing you wanted from me was, give me, what pictures do you want, and what, this, no finances or anything. And out of her busy schedule and all that stuff, y'all in the chat, need to give her some, show her some love, because she has made it so that we now have a way to connect with you beyond the live streams, beyond being censored or having to be restricted in what we do. And she has created an environment that can do nothing more than grow and get bigger and expand. And so we wanted to take part of the time of her interview to talk about her what she's created, and what she and I, and even some of the things that she sees as, because it's, she has a background in this, as how we can expand this community. So I'm celebrating Chris Robinson Jordan for your unselfish generosity. You and, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for doing that, because you have now made it possible, potentially, eventually, that there are a lot of things that I have to deal with that I won't have to deal with. I mean, people now text me for when they see USB, but I'm hoping that after, which is running right now, for you to using flash, text. Don't text me anymore, y'all. Go to the website. Website, the US one and the international one, for instance. And the difference between US and international is exact same USB, but one costs more to ship it. So if you live in continental, so-called U.S, please don't ask for international thinking you're getting the international version of it, because all you're going to do is have to pay more. Or I usually refund when people pay 37 when it should have been 25 because it's really going domestically. I'd refund the 12. It was US, but on the website now you can just go on there and find so much information. So again, thank you. I don't see it. I see there's been like 10 comments. I hope these are people applauding you for unselfish, contribution to furthering the cause of unity, being a part of the war. And we're going to be soon sending out an email blast to the sisters, welcoming them and having, being able to have some communication and finding out who we have amongst us. Because who would have known? Who would have known that here you are, a well-known, I'm going to say it, you were just working on the Grammys a few weeks ago. So, so here you are, a part of this community, and giving us your love and giving us your talent in the midst of everything else that you're doing. So, that's when I said in the very beginning, if you were on, if you were on, when I started talking about how selfless she was and how, she's like soft-spoken, but a powerhouse. And, whenever I talk to you, it's just like, I was like, oh, she's just oh gosh.
Oh, Dr. G. Oh my goodness. Well, I've already told you how much you inspire me. And that's what it is. It's inspiration. And, I come from women who didn't have a lot. And we worked with what we had. And ultimately, in the end, you recognize that you have to be there for each other. And what's happening to us is no joke. And we can complain all day. My grandmother used to have a saying. She said, I could complain, but it ain't going to do no good. And so ultimately, in the end, what are you going to do? And yes, I can be busy, but let me say this. Yes, we're busy. But when there's something to be done, there's other things I could push aside. I could get into it and push that other stuff. You're going to have to stop calling, texting. I'm doing this right now. Mm-hmm. And that's what life is, really. If you want to get something done, you can put things on the back burner to get stuff done that's really, really important. And this is too important, And so one of the things I learned, particularly when you were a writer, working in developing your own content, you have to be able to do multiple things. And so for me, creating this website, I do it for other people. Why can't I do it for you? And for what we're doing here, this is so important. And we need to be able to have a platform to communicate, to get stuff done. And the website's going to be amazing. We'll be able to, talk about our upcoming events, and not just, throughout the country. We can talk about, we can share information. We can, talk about things that we just haven't been able to talk about in the forum, share ideas, teach each other things, learn from each other. The possibilities are endless. And all you really have to do is just raise your hand and say, I want to help. And that's really it. And so for me, this is mission work. It's important. We have to do this. And so I know that sometimes it's a challenge. It's difficult for many of us to push aside our jobs. We have children. We have responsibilities. We have other things that are calling us and pulling at us. I get it. But ultimately, in the end, what are we going to do? We have to do something. And there's so many people in this group, in this space that I've met that, they're complimenting us and, hey, Dr. G, you've inspired me. You changed my life. There was a gentleman, he made a comment in the forum the other day, and he said, Dr. G, you've changed my life. I'm healthier now. That's the stuff that is huge. When you change somebody's life, when you get them on a path to being healthier, that's everything. So we're not just building a website, we're also going to be sharing information with one another. We're going to be able to literally save each other's lives through our energy, through our spirits. And just, it's going to be a beautiful thing. It's going to be a beautiful thing. And I will also add this. If there's troublemakers in the group, they will immediately be blocked. So, we can control these things. We don't have to rely on different platforms and such to get things done, because that's really what it's about. We just got to do it ourselves if we want to do it.
One of the things we talked about with Chris is that we're trying to transition our viewers, and we're told that family is a slave name, so I was like, we're kind of conditioned to say that, but y'all know who y'all is. We want to get you all transitioned and accustomed to going to the website. I have it up. For instance, I see that we're missing one thing on the upcoming thing, is it doesn't have the date.
Okay.
It doesn't have the date of March 7th. So, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to change that ASAP.
Okay. But we want you to say every day, you know how every day sometimes people go and click on Facebook, click on your House of Real Wicked and Minds channel, because you never know. I mean, website, because you never know if we put something of importance in the on the website. And if it's new and it's coming up, it's probably going to be on the front page. We have a couple events coming up, y'all. We have March 17th, 18th, and 19th. I know we kind of late getting out, but any of you all who are close enough to come, I've got we have 3 different options, for people to come. They can come for the whole 3 days, 17th, 18th, 19th. They can buy 1 ticket at $75. They can buy 2 tickets at the same time for $120, which is a $30 or 30 note saving. So 2 people can I'll just buy a ticket with you, and it's going to be $60. Or you could just come to this. We're having a solar return celebration for myself and Abundance Child of Drop Squad Kitchen. We have the same solar return, and she's my dear sister, and we're gonna party and celebrate on the first night, because it actually is the 17th. But so we have 3 things going on: is $75 for the weekend or $60 for the weekend, depending on how you purchase your ticket. I've got links for all of that. I'm gonna put them in the chat so that you all, that I think they're live links. But we have another Unfiltered coming up, which we don't have the date, but I want to bring. But I can put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to register today. So I had to put something out really, really quick because, Sister LaCrista, because you're going to be here, I wanted to, have you, talk about where they can find certain things. So should I bring up the website?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Let me see if I can. Okay, let me share the screen. See if I can. Okay, so here we go. All right. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me get back over here and see. Okay, so here's the page when you first log on. Can you see that, Chris?
I can.
Okay, so it looks a little different when they are coming in on a phone. Am I right? On a cell phone?
Yes, just slightly. Mm-hmm.
Slightly different. But where you see this across the top, the menu on the computer and the PC, I think the menu bars are somewhere like over here on the right, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, on the mobile. Mm-hmm.
So you can click, like any of these are, like when you see a yellow, I think we're talking live link, right? Mm-hmm. Am I correct? And so you can click, for instance, say on here, and now you see some of the past civics lessons, and you have a click here, watch now, so you don't have to go to YouTube to get those. And there are things like right here that you can actually see. And then I'm just going to go back. Just want to go to the front. So here, holistic and spiritual content to uplift the divine feminine, and then you click on learn more, and you'll see some of our past guests that have done more holistic, so I think this is absolutely I love the way you set this up. Then over here, Ah, Austere the Duke of Tears will be doing an unfiltered presentation on next Tuesday, which is March the 7th, 2023, 8
Yes.
p.m. We'll put the time, the date and the time up here. But if you click here on register, that's where you register. You're going to put, see, I'm showing you, look, this is, we wanted to give you a demonstration.
Yeah.
So you're going to put your first name here. Well, you don't need to see all that stuff, but you're going to put your first name, last name, your email address, and click register, right?
Mm-hmm.
So actually, let me do this. I'm going to put, I'm going to register. How about that? I've got like a bunch of emails. I'm going to register. Okay. And I'm going to use this one. So, and you put your first and last name, click register, and this is what you're going to get. You're all set. See you soon. And it'll say, come back to this link at start times. So what you can do is add that to your calendar here if you have, that kind of thing, or the link that you clicked to register. Just come back to that link at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, and you'll be able to get in because they have your email in the system. It may ask for your email or whatever, but it'll get you in. So I wanted you all to see that is how you register for a presentation, which is different than, and look, Chris, you could take this, registering for the site.
Yes, absolutely. When you, and Dr. G, can you scroll up just a little bit at the navigation bar? And what you guys will see, you'll see forum. And that is where you log in to get all of the unfiltered sessions, and where you can see all of the information, the registration links to everything. Sometimes you'll see that some of the events are duplicated just so I can ensure that everyone can see it more than once. And then there's also the members section. Again, you have to sign in to see that section, and that lets you see who's the members. And you guys can go in there and create profiles. You can create, just like you do on any other social media platform. You can talk about yourself. You can add your own links. There's so much there that you can do. And again, the website will be growing. It will be expanding. And, feel free to send an email and say, hey, I would love to see XYZ. I think someone actually did talk about or ask about training. So I see all of those, and I definitely am going to make note of that. So this space will be what we make it. And again, when you go into the forum, you can talk, you can make posts yourselves, so a lot of it is just communicating and saying, hey, I want to, talk about this, or there's some information that I'd like to share with people. So this is really our space. And this is where we will be putting information that's unfiltered, that's not available on YouTube and the Facebook channel. And that's a great thing, because now we can learn without any inhibitions. Yeah.
And let's talk about, let me stop sharing for a minute. Let's talk about the fact that we are trying to get, we've asked that you not repost on any other on your personal social media platforms, or YouTube rather, the videos that we do that are unfiltered. There's a reason why they're unfiltered. There's a reason why they're in, what I'm going to call our sacred space. We don't need, somebody emailed me and said somebody posted one of your unfiltered, so which means they would have had to have either screen copied it or did something, because we never put it on YouTube. We never put it on Facebook if it's unfiltered. Only thing I've ever put on Facebook or YouTube is an announcement to tell you to go and register for it. But we definitely we don't put the link on. So we want you, if you want to keep this privilege of, what we have to actually have cooperation. And you always be able to go back and click on in the forum and see the replay. You can show it to your kinfolk and your friends, and if they want to see it, get them to register. If they're not registered, just register for the channel. For this website. The other thing we're looking and exploring is having a market share, like a marketplace, a market share where for a very nominal fee, you will be able to, we'll advertise. We're probably going to take a lot of these scrolls, it takes me away from what I'm doing. I'm scrolling stuff here, but we're going to put, we'll put your ad up in the market share part. People can contact you for your product or service, and they could always find it there, and you'd be able to send them to the website, because that's where you'll be listed and so forth. So we'll be letting folk know about that. But who's this? Green Sergeant. I tried getting in, but the prompt, which was a 15-minute window to put up the code, kept saying time was up, so the registration was incomplete. I'm not sure whether that was for the one for we just had, because the new one right now, you can actually literally register for, let me put this up here. If anybody is interested in registering for a seer, here is the link. Hope you can get that whole thing in there. Oh no, that's not. Wait a minute. No, I just put two things in there. You have to forgive me. Let me redo it. I put and please ignore what I just put in there, because I just put two things in there that weren't supposed to be together. Okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can get this. This isn't supposed to be in here. That's what it is. I don't know how I do that. I see what I did, Chris. I actually mixed the two together.
Yeah, and normally when we have a unfiltered session, I will definitely make sure to put that on the homepage, as well as you will also see the What's New tab. You'll see things under there, and it will also be in the forum. So I will have it in 3 separate places, just to ensure that no matter where you go on the website, you'll be able to see it.
Okay, so that's the link right there that I just put in for registering, but you can do it right on the website. But I'm just giving that to you tonight. The other thing, I put you back. I think you muted yourself. The next thing I wanted to do is give you the links for the events that are coming up. I told you there was 3 different ways that you can come. You might just want to come to the party on Friday. You might want to come to the whole thing, or you want to come and get 2 tickets and save $30. And we actually have the links for that. So the whole thing is right here. I have to do these things separate, y'all. This is for the whole thing, but again, it's on the website. But I'm putting it in the chat so that if somebody says, "Oh, what's the link?" Well, here it is. I'm giving it to you 2 different ways. But go to the website. Really, just go to the website and the same stuff. So this is saving, and then there's one more. I put this in here so that I could do this. This is Friday only, but I just wanted to put that in the comments in case anybody was saying, "Oh, I want to come, but I don't have the link." There's the links. We'll go on the website. But we want to see you. Oh yeah, this is, look, I need to find, and y'all might think I'm crazy, but it might be somebody out here like ASAP. I need to find somebody who's coming or will come to the event, and we can talk about whether you need to pay or not, because I need somebody in the Detroit area, somewhere between Detroit and say Pontiac, that's reputable, between Pontiac, Michigan and Detroit, who would drive those 600 and some miles to the event, that we will take care of it because we need you to bring somebody. So, and it's a very, this individual don't fly. He doesn't, take planes, and I'm hard pressed to find a bus that's coming from there. So I said, maybe there's somebody, will come to the event, because we've had people in the past that came from Detroit, and Detroit and Pontiac are about 30 miles, 32 miles apart. So, we'll handle that. So reach out to Dr. G if that's you. If you see this and you are in the Detroit, between Detroit and Pontiac, and you'd be interested in coming and driving and bringing someone for me, then please reach out to me. You can only do stuff like this when you look, Chris, when these are your kinfolk.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this group is so awesome. When you put out a need, normally you get responses. Just like, the reason why we have this expanded platform is because I said, oh, I need to get $2,500 in the next 4 or 5 days, and y'all did it. You went above it, and then we were able to put that into the work that's being done at the building. So it was a win-win, and it worked. It worked for us. So we're just gracious. Grant Sheik will be here, and some others will be here, and I'm trying to get my special guests here. So again, between Detroit and Project, I need you to call me. Not see my number enough times, that 3450500 number. But what we're saying that going forward, check the website. Your answer might be there.
That's right.
So, anything else you want to add with that? Because I've been going on.
No.
They quiet in the chat now.
No, it's really whatever you all need, tell me and make suggestions, and we will do our best to incorporate it into the website and the forum, events, sharing of knowledge, more unfiltered sessions. And I'm loving this. And we will definitely have robust discussions. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Right. What do y'all think? Come on, say something. Speak up now. Don't get quiet now. Because we finally have an extended way of reaching out to you all. So we need you to let us know that you're on board with what's going on, and that you see that progress is actually being made. That we're not just telling you we're gonna. We've been looking to have a website for we've been in existence since 2011. So to it now 2023, we finally have a presence and a web presence and a way of expanding our outreach to the global community. And it doesn't matter whether you're in this continental, so forth, U.S, or whether of a Mexican, or whether or not you're you may be in the UK, or you may be in anywhere. Global. We're global. We are a global, if you will, group, and we want you to be a part of it. So we need you to join and create your profile. Sister LaChris looks at your questions, and if it's anything she thinks I need to see, she forwards it to me. I haven't figured out how to respond to them, because I can't respond that way, but you'll tell me how or how the response was. But we've got that, and it's a site that you've created that has so much room for expansion. You've told.
Yeah. I'm so impressed. We've had, folks have been signing up every day. It's been really, really awesome to see, and we are expanding. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Somebody else was asking, how can they, we'll set up my profile after the show. Great. You could go to the description of this show. If you're on YouTube, just click, and when you click on to see the video, there's a down arrow, and you will see description. In the description box, you'll find LaChris's links, the ones that she has provided. So she's got an email there. She's got links to her. What's the name of the
American Aboriginals.
American Aboriginals is on there. I actually have it on here. I can tell you what's there. Oh no, I went away from it, but it's on there, y'all. It's on there. Is there a way to prevent the lives on the website from being shared? Well, the lives in live part, now I know what you're talking about. First, I thought she meant like the people's lives, but she means the live videos. The lives that we have on those sections are actually also on YouTube, right? Sister LaChris, those are YouTube videos. Unfiltered. The unfiltered, which is in the member forum, those are the ones that we did that were not on YouTube and not on Facebook. And I don't know if there's a way, they can't download them there, can they?
No, they can't download them, but they do have the link. And I think that might have been what happened with someone. Unfortunately, we live in the world of screenshots and what have you. So that might have been what happened, is that someone could do that either on their phone or on their laptops and screenshot some content. But I will say, just be very vigilant about, it's almost like having a conversation. If someone's not in the room and you go repeat it, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the content that was in the room.
Mhm.
So, we created this space so that we all could share and listen and receive education in a way that is unfiltered, and we can ask questions, right?
Mhm.
So if people are sharing this content, it means it dilutes the intent. So, please honor that, and know that collectively we want to create this space for ourselves. And, again, people can register if they want to see the content. It's really that simple. You don't
Okay.
necessarily have to screenshot it and say, oh, look at this, just have people register.
Right. Just have, that's what I was saying. Just have them registered, and then they have their own, they can see it. So
Mhm.
I'm putting, you have a website, and I'm going to put it right here. Sure, I'm putting it right. Did I put that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So her website is lachrisjordan.com, and that, there's some, and I would assume there are other, they'll have their links on your site to other things.
Yes, there are. Regarding the House of Reawakening Minds website, you guys could send a message in the chat. There's a chat feature in the right-hand corner, and you could also send an email, and I will see it immediately. And I get notifications when something comes through. Again, if there are specific questions for Dr. G, I will send that to her. And but yeah, I will do my best to respond to you in a timely manner, and don't keep you hanging too long.
Yeah. So the one that you see, Glamour Puss 33, those that are already on YouTube, she just mirrored those. Nobody else copied them to YouTube. That's actually on YouTube, our page. The unfiltered one, though, you won't find those on YouTube, and that's what we want to keep it that way. Keep it in the house, and literally and figurative. House of Reawakening Minds, the House of Reawakening Minds website, and just inside, this circle, so that we can start. We have to learn this process of being unified. We have to learn a process of respecting, whatever guidelines have been established, because when you violate, privileges, then, you make it bad for everybody else. And we don't want that to happen. We want this to be our place. Like you said, I invited you. I didn't invite the whole world to come, and you can't bring, your crew if you're the only one with an invite. Let everybody else get an invite as far as becoming a member. Like, give them a link to the chat, to the website, and say, hey, check this out. And hey, by the way, you might want to join and create a profile, because as we go forward, look, Chris, we've talked about that the member side are going to have more privilege. Membership will have its privileges, and you won't be able to see everything all the time when you're not actually registered as a member. Again, we also want to stress that joining the website does not automatically register you for unfiltered sessions, and that each unfiltered session has its own individual registration process. And unfortunately, that's how it is. So if in the one for Grand Chic, that first one we did got a different registration than the one we did with Rod, and the one that we did that we're going to redo with Brother Asir is going to be different from the other. So each one has its own unique registration link. So, because some folks thought when they registered for the very first one with Chris that they were just registered, and so they were like, I didn't get anything. And I was like,
Right.
Well, some registered for the website, and some thought that the last time they put their email address in, that for the first one they were registered. Unfortunately, the system doesn't work that way, and we do need you to register. When we say it's unfiltered, know that it's not going to be broadcast on YouTube or Facebook, and that's just a way to begin to train ourselves to be a community. Yeah. That's why I feel in my heart that other people, other folks, other groups have more success than we do, because we don't know how to do things in secret. we don't know how to, have our, secret meetings and secret plans. We want to, we want to use their platforms, and they absolutely love it. Like, oh, listen, let's just tune in. I mean, they can hear this right now. Anybody else can hear this right now, but no, we're not inviting you in without, the secret handshake, which is,
Right. Yep.
right.
And we'll start sending out e-blasts as well, so that, if you missed announcements, you'll see it in your email on how to register for events and things like that. So look out for that, and we'll make sure to keep in communication with everyone. And yeah, we're gonna rock it out. It's gonna be nice.
Yeah, we're really good. We're really looking forward to this. So please, if you all want to see Brother Asir or hear and see him next Tuesday, do either do. I want you to go to the website. Really, I'll put the links in the comments. But I really want you to go to the website and do it right there. I also want to see y'all on the 17th, 18th, and 19th. You all gonna let Dr. G turn 60 doggone 8, and you not showing up. I don't know. I'll find out, LaChris, how much they love me. Let's put some action to your words, right? So those of you, particularly the ones, and some of them are like, I can't get a plane or like, then if you're close enough within the tri-state area, you folks in New York and New Jersey and PA and Virginia. I know already folks coming from North Carolina and Texas, you see what I mean? And Florida, So we want you to, make a sacrifice, because we really want to usher in the vernal equinox. And I'm excited about the folks that will go on. We have an optional nature walk the last day, that Sunday morning. And I'm going to take folks to the place where I used to do what I call nature church. And it's a beautiful, and it's really weather permitting. As if it's snowing or raining, we're not going. But if it's like below certain degree, we're not going. But it is the intent to take you all on a nature walk that will get us started for the day, which only goes until 2:00 on that last day, so that y'all who have planes and trains and other things that you have to get into, hopefully you schedule it for after 2. If you're coming, and then you'll be a part of that, because we're going to do some holistic stuff on the last day, and we've got Dr. Botanica and Brother Dave, and Brother Dave, he does all kinds of muscle testing, and he does different things that he can test you and tell you what's going on. He doesn't even need the electronic, the energy work I do. He's just got the knowledge, and he's an iridologist and all that stuff. So we want, we got Grand Chic, and got myself and some others. And if somebody reaches out to me from Detroit and Pontiac, somewhere between there, we'll have somebody else. And I'm just going to say, starts with R and ends with H, but we're trying to make that happen. So I'm looking forward to it, though. So we got right up to 158. We're just about.
Oh, wow.
So it's on you. I'm giving you the closing platform.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. G, for this. This is amazing. Amazing.
Thank you, LaChris.
And my sisters out there and brothers, we just keep going at this and learning more about ourselves, and knowing this is for our legacy. It's for our children and grandchildren, and knowing that it's up to us. It really is. And ultimately, in the end, we will be appreciated for all of our efforts and searching our history and our genealogy. And for those who have started this journey and are really, just cracking it open, awesome. And, let's continue to teach each other and learn from each other. And thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say to somebody who said that they were referring to Unfiltered, there's one thing out there on Unfiltered on the YouTube, and all it is an announcement to go and register. It was not the actual video. It says I had to kind of tell people, here, click this link to register. So I put it out there as a YouTube special announcement video, but it actually was not the actual Unfiltered. So we did not put that on there. So that's probably what you saw. Yeah, that's what it was. Again, I want to thank you. I want to no glamour puss. I'm not charging you 120 notes to come to my birthday party. We're having a 3-day event. On the first day, it happens to be my solar return, hon. It's a 3-day event. It was the tickets are $75 for the whole weekend. 120 is what it costs if you buy 2 tickets for 2 people instead of 75 is 60. So no, we're not charging $120 for my birthday. As a matter of fact, people that just want to come on Friday, because it's 2 of us celebrating, we have a $30 donation. If you don't want to come for Friday or Saturday, but for the whole weekend, it's either $75 or $60 if you buy 2 tickets at the same time. So no, it's not for my birthday. And it's not even really for me. It's to support the House of Reawakening Minds. It just happens to be my solar return. So, okay. So if but if it's a no for you, that's good. I mean, that's okay. But I want to clear that up, because no, we're not charging 120 notes to come to my birthday party. We're having actually lectures, and I mean, I saw something where LaChris, where somebody was having something that's same like 3 days, not the same 3 days, but 3 days, and the tickets were $500. And I thought, what?
Where? Wow.
And it was in Georgia.
Wow.
And they actually at one point they wanted Sheik to come, and we didn't take
Wow.
because it was ridiculous. But this is really, it comes out to like $25 a day for the 3-day event. And that's very reasonable. And it's only $20 a day if you pay for 2 tickets at the same time. So to clear that up, that's a misunderstanding. So yes, the genealogy class is over. In that you can reach out to Sister LaChris. It was our intent all along to start with genealogy and then to end with information about the website, because she is the creator and the webmaster for the website. And I was introducing you all to our webmaster, and I wanted to, bring light to the fact that she is the one that is doing that work and giving us this platform. Okay, love you all. For those of you who could come for our 3-day event, which we're calling Ushering in the Vernal Equinox, but the first night, it's a meet and greet and have a good time on that Friday night. And then we start, we have 10 hours on Saturday, got a whole day full. And then we have another, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sunday. So it's a 3-day weekend. We feeding you and we doing different stuff. So, if you can come, we'd love to see you. Okay. LaChris, thank you.
Yes, thank
you all. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you all for staying with us. And we'll see you on Friday. Grand Sheik. I just don't know what his topic is yet, but for those of you who love the Grand Sheik, he will be here on Friday. Okay. Oh, thank you. Goddess Imani, thank you for that. Don't you see that? She says, thank you for your web creation. And we thank you.
Thank you.
All righty then. Okay. Thank you. We're leaving.
Dr. G. Really? Yeah, that's me. Dr. G. Really? Who's she? Yeah, that's me. Dr. G. Really? Who's she? Yeah, that's me. Dr. G. Really? Who's she? Yeah, that's me.